Andy, it's been a good weekend as we come into the Men of a Certain X week here. We are expanding to three times a week.
Yeah,
Uh,
big time,
it's
Dave.
it's exciting news, and so and when I thought I was like, we had been debating, do we have enough topics to cover? Do we have enough things that people want to hear from us about? And I think what this weekend showed is that Andy, there is probably more than enough topics to cover
Yeah,
because just when you turn over every little rock, there's more things you find there. So
there's so much. There's so much to get into. Happy first Men's Monday to you.
Men's Monday, I like it. Men's Monday. So and Andy, I mean, you've had two rough weekends in a row with your Detroit Lions. Let's do a sports check-in. How'd you feel?
Hey, well, most importantly, Dave, it's Victory Monday, right? So no matter how you cut it, Lions won, right? And so I mean, it was a pretty fun weekend in NFL football. Some interesting wins and losses, including the Packers,
Uh,
getting a win over the Chiefs, which made me feel a lot better about losing to the Packers, to be honest with you.
yeah, yeah.
For the Lions, for those who didn't see the game, I mean, if you turned that game on to start, the Lions were up 21-0 in like 7.5 minutes, and you thought they were going to put on a show and run a 50 to goose egg type game. And then all of a sudden, the Lions started doing all the things that they've done the last couple of weeks that led them to difficult matches, and it looked really sketchy. But thank God they were able to pull it out at the end. Jameis Winston came in and did all the things that Jameis does, and so the Lions got the ball back and were able to secure the victory. It was a good game in some respects. A lot of concerns are still there that need to be cleaned up. I mean, candidly, the real truth is going to be revealed when they go down to Dallas and play the Cowboys, Dave. Either going to show up and make a game of it and show they are a solid football team, or the Cowboys are going to really put the hurt on them, and it's going to be tough. But interestingly, I know there's other things to cover in the NFL and other sports topics as well. But really, if you look at the NFL playoff picture right now, not only are the Lions third in the NFC, you've got three NFC North teams in the playoffs right now. The Lions, the Vikings, and the Packers are all presently sitting in the playoff picture in the top seven spots, which, who would have thunk that, right? Really, really, really interesting to see that. So there's a lot of football left to play. At the end of the day, the Lions put themselves in position to still win the division. Good for the Lions. Good football weekend all around. Dave, what about you? The Cowboys did a great win on Thursday night. Any thoughts there otherwise?
Well, I mean, you talk about this matchup looming with the Lions and the Cowboys. This could be like a colossal shootout where, I mean, if for some reason the Cowboys defense just didn't show up on Thursday, but yet Dak, I've had my doubts about Dak for several about for the last year and a half or so, but he came through. He stood up and came through when he needed to, and it's still hit or miss. As much as I want to think that the Cowboys are some sort of elite team, you look at the way San Francisco's playing right now. I mean, that's pretty impressive. They really put it to the Eagles last night or yesterday, and then they've got the Eagles next weekend, and so the Cowboys have the last five. They're 9-3, but their last five are really tough games. They play Buffalo. They've got the Eagles. I mean, they have the Commanders at the end of the year, but they've got Miami in there too. I mean, in Detroit. So that's four potential playoff teams, and then the Commanders. So where do you go with that? So
Yeah, it should be interesting. And then, I mean, like I said, there's some other besides those two games. But hey, give the Cowboys credit where it's due. At the end of the day, I think Dak is playing maybe the best football he's played. He got some actually really nice praise from Aaron Rodgers over the weekend as well. And I still have to hate Aaron Rodgers because he was a Packer that abused the Lions for many years. But this guy knows football, and he's been giving Dak a lot of love. And
yeah.
he's playing good football. I mean, at the end of the day, he's playing good football. He's really helping that team win. And they're going to be competitive. I think they're going to be competitive down the stretch here. So the good football there, and again, some other really interesting matches over the weekend, and some real stinkers. I mean, Los Angeles and New England may be the worst game of the season, but somehow the Falcons played the Jets, and that was maybe equally awful in many respects. But interesting football. The Texans getting a nice win over Denver, looking like a good football team still. And it was a fun weekend. But Dave, besides the pros, I think you want to talk on some
Yeah.
some exciting stuff in college haps, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, real quickly on just that New England lost Chargers game. The Chargers were favored by 5.5, and they won 6-0. I mean, how crazy! And New England, for all their offensive awfulness, this is the third straight game they've held the opponent to 10 or less points and lost. And that's the first time since I think 1938 or something crazy when they were playing with Leatherheads and all that other stuff. So, but yes, Andy, I was going to switch to the college realm. Again, my Penn State Nittany Lions 10-2, they were destined for like a New Year's Six bowl. But the big blow up was finally occurred, where you had six really good teams, I think, at the top there.
Yeah.
All of them either 13-0 or 12-1. You knew, and look, when you have a playoff of four teams and you have five major college conferences, you knew somebody was going to be left out on some instance. And in this particular case, it was the ACC, which had been a very much of a laughing stock on the major five or the Power Five conferences. They're 13-0 Florida State Seminoles, who their starting quarterback was injured, broke his leg, I think 2 weeks ago. They had continued to win out. They won their conference championship over a really good, I thought, Louisville team, and they were the odd man out here as Michigan is number one. Washington, who was a really impressive performance over Oregon, was number two. Number three is Texas. Oh, excuse me. Number three is Texas, and number four is Alabama, who they were number 8 going into the weekend, and they beat number 1 Georgia, and on a really good game too. And Florida State's out. So, and of course, anarchy is crazy. Anarchy is abound. Next year it goes to 12 teams, and while it's 4 and 5 that get complained this year, next year it'll be the 13th, 14th team that'll think that they deserve that 12th spot. So I don't think you ever win here, Andy, but it does make for interesting drama. What'd you think about it all?
Well, I think one. I mean, the really important point is expanded playoffs, which I think are something that I think you and I and we've been looking at that, and people of our age group have been looking at that since we were in high school and college, calling for playoffs, and it's finally going to be a reality next year with 12 teams. Yeah, the 13th and 14th teams are going to cry about it, but I mean, realistically, the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th teams aren't going to win the national championship, right? I mean,
yeah, right.
Those top teams are going to win. So if you miss it one year, hey, win more games, get in the top 12, like that's fair. For this year, I have no love for Florida State. I mean, there's a time when I hated that team because they were very dominant, during a stretch of our youth, and I didn't care for that. But at the end of the day, I do feel like maybe they got a little bit robbed here, right? Georgia lost to Alabama. One of those teams is going to make it. One isn't. I think it's fair that Alabama makes it. For Florida State, I mean, yeah, somebody's got to be left out. But if you're a champion and you're undefeated, one of those top 5, conference champions, I think it's really hard to argue against them. And candidly, even though I know this is not going to sit well with most folks, I think if I was going to keep somebody out, Dave, I would have left Michigan out. And I know that sucks. And I grew up liking Michigan because I have this strange attraction to the Michigan sports teams for no reason that I can understand. But I grew up liking Michigan a lot, but at the end of the day, they were the ones who were penalized. They were the ones that did some sketchy stuff during the season. If you've got to make a really hard decision, penalize the guys that should be penalized, right? And let the others play ball. That would have gone over. I mean, there have probably been riots in the streets if that happened, but somebody's got to be left out. I think it sucks for Florida State. At the end of the day, this system has sucked as long as it's been around. It's just a challenge of a ranking system. That's why I'm so grateful for regular playoffs, so like we have in most major sports leagues. Can't do that in college, so it is what it is. Sorry, Florida State, but better luck next year.
Yeah, it is interesting. With all of this argument, you just hear like the committee is biased towards the SEC, the committee is this, the committee is that, and it does call into question like who are the powers orchestrating like some of this. Is it what's best for TV, or is it best teams possible? Yeah, nobody's ever going to win here. The committee claims to have every year they do something, they're resetting, they're everyone's got a clean slate. The reality is, I mean, I think that they try to work towards that. It's just really hard when you look at it overall, and I do hate it for Florida State too. I hated them growing up. I really did not like them. I do feel like they got gypped out of it, but I also feel like it was kind of the right decision because if Alabama played Florida State today, they'd probably be like a 10-point favorite or something. And so I think it's just tough, but it will make for some interesting drama. And I can guarantee you, as soon as It's the same argument you get when Notre Dame made the playoff a couple years. They're like, "Oh, Notre Dame made it, and they don't even play in a conference. How is this possible? It's all rigged towards Notre Dame, Notre
Yeah.
Dame, Notre Dame." And then Notre Dame would get in and they'd get waxed or whatever, and it'd make my heart happy.
Yeah.
At the same time, but next year will be 12 teams, and I think you're right, Andy. Those eight through 12 teams, it's just like college basketball. They may win one game and everybody will get really excited, and that opening weekend will be really exciting.
Yeah.
Then after that, it's gonna go. The top six teams are usually a cut above. So we'll see how it goes. But anything else on the sports front, Andy? You want to hit?
No, dude, I think it's a good cover some of the big sports news, exciting stuff. We could talk college one more. I know you've got some thoughts on those top teams, but I think it's time to press ahead.
That's a perfect transition, Andy. Well done, well done. So let's transition, Andy. I don't know. I'm debating whether to go for our second topic, but I do think that when you talk about conspiracy theories, you talk about the college football playoff. I found something very interesting on my X feed, my Twitter feed this weekend, and it was a picture of Taylor Swift, and she's singing one of her songs, and she's in this black outfit with one of her legs is exposed, but the rest of her body is covered in this black bedazzled outfit, and she's singing one of her songs, and she's on a cube, Andy. She's up on a cube.
Heaven forbid.
Yep. It's a prop, Andy, but it's a black cube, and all the people. So somebody wrote on their Twitter feed, and it's like something about hidden symbolism, and you start opening up the comments, and you like, oh, satanic cult. Taylor Swift is the rings of Saturn or whatever the methodology there is, and Taylor Swift's a pedophile, and Taylor Swift is a cult leader. Taylor Swift is connected to satanic cults and such. And I just couldn't help but realize it. And look, you start reading the comments, and they're not like half like parody. It's not a parody type of thing. There are people out there who really think that Taylor Swift, in playing in a stadium full of people all around the world, is some sort of cult leader who's hiding in plain sight. Never mind that these were probably the same people who were at the airport at JFK when the Beatles got off the plane coming from Liverpool and crying and tearing. They were probably in the front row of the Elvis Presley movement and loving everything about Elvis Presley, crying and doing all this stuff. Those weren't cults back then, Andy, but Taylor Swift, she is a cult leader. We figured it out. All this other stuff. I just know she's Satan incarnate. So what do you think about that, Andy?
I mean, I think the fact that Taylor is in league with Lucifer is just finally coming to light, and I mean, the world needs to know this. No, Dave, this is a kind of nonsense that. I mean, one, this is the cesspool that is the platform formerly known as Twitter, and why I minimize my activity there, to be honest with you. But it's just a mess, and there's always gonna be people that cling on to these things, but at the end of the day, there's it's sort of, I was reading through some of those posts, and it's sort of like she's in league with the devil, or she might be, heaven forbid, Muslim, right? It's like, like what are we even talking about here? And there's been a lot of sort of hate for her for a long time. Right? When you're that famous, there's gonna be people that hate you. But now her, just like with her boyfriend Travis Kelce, right? He's done COVID commercials, so he's on some people's hit list as obviously now a bad guy. And together they're supporting COVID vaccines and obviously in league with the devil. So listen, this kind of stuff is out there. People are going to believe what they want to believe. The scary thing, I think, the important thing is with all of these things, if you're not already down the rabbit hole of insanity that these things lead to, in today's environment, it's not that hard to fall into it, right? This is a much longer conversation we'll come back to, I think, at a time, but of all types, right? People, whether it's flat Earth, syndrome, or the moon landing never happened, or 9/11. I mean, take your pick of topics, and there's enough false information out there. Sometimes, we talked about deliberate and accidental false information, but you can come to believe anything if you're willing to believe what you're looking at. And when people put things like this out there, for some folks, it's a rabbit hole they fall into, and they really start to believe it. And while personally, Dave, I'm unlike you. I'm not a Swiftie, I think she's a remarkable person, and she's had a very successful career. She's doing fantastic things. She seems to really be, kind to her staff and her fans. It's great to see. It's unfortunate people decide that, hey, because of who she is, we've got to try and tear her down. That's just what you see in this world. And I personally, I don't think she's necessarily an agent of the devil. But what do I know? You know what I mean? People have been accusing different people of being the Antichrist for a long time. Maybe finally they're right, Dave. Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, it struck my chord. Yeah, obviously, from a security standpoint, in our other lives, Andy, we track a lot of this malinformation type of thing. But it's really important when you start seeing how these people start going down these rabbit holes, and they start like learning to believe in it. And I think that was one of the things from COVID. Everybody was inside all the time, especially in those early days, those first 6 to 8 weeks when everybody was just pretty much confined to their houses. Some people a lot longer. And you can easily get there, right? I mean, nowadays there's so much things online, and there's so many people who are posting stuff on YouTube. You can go down that YouTube rabbit hole like unbelievably, and so it is alarming. I did find that a little humorous, but on the flip side of it, it can be also very dangerous when we
Yeah.
really get into a lot of that work. So I did want to share that again. The content, like the content machine for us, Andy, is just going to keep going. When we see things like this, we gotta call them out. But anything else on that front, Andy, and then we'll transition to another area, Andy.
Yeah, for sure. So no, I think we'll leave that alone, but maybe we'll come back and talk some of the chaos of conspiracies another day.
Yeah.
And I know you've got some personal alien abduction stories you might want to share
Yep.
with those that are listening, right? I mean, you've had several, I think, intergalactic alien anal probes, but that's for another topic for another day. We'll come back to that, and I think we can move on for today.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
no,
There's definitely a lot of places for us to go there, Andy. Okay. So Andy, let's do that transition one more time. Perfect. So as we go through that transition, Andy, we want to transition to a little personal news. And I think this is, I want to give you the floor a little bit. You've been going through a lot in the last couple months here. And so you had an announcement over the weekend. I think it was over the weekend, and a little personal news. I'll give you the floor, Andy. You want to share?
So I will. So I wasn't sure we are going to do this, and you asked me if I wanted to, and I said, hey, sure, we can talk it. So appreciate that opportunity. And long story short, we've been dealing with a health issue on our end for a while here, and kept it kind of private as we were getting information and sharing with our family in the best way my wife and I thought we could and should, and we did that. And I sort of kept it private until I kind of realized. It's kind of hard to keep things private, because you sort of there's a weight that goes along with it. And then you feel bad about people that you haven't told, who might stumble upon it, or you can't do certain things and you can't explain why. And so I went to kind of figure out a way to share it that was manageable for me. And so I really tried to think through that. And so, long story short, I was diagnosed back in April with a type of treatable cancer, a type of non-Hodgkin lymphoma. And we were sort of in a wait and watch period. And then we got to a point where we had to start treatment for it. And so, we went through the steps of telling, our families and making sure everybody knew that we felt needed to know. And I talked to them. I was like, hey, I kind of want to just like put it out there so that others can know, and I can be done with having to tell people. And if one person doesn't know, whatever, then I can point them back to this. So I was trying to figure out how to do that. And I decided to share it with, we're talking about sort of crazy conspiracy groups and people feeding each other nonsense. Well, what's really important, I think, is that people find healthy communities to be a part of that build you up and encourage you, right? And in a place, you and I have talked about before, I'm a big fan of the Arnold Schwarzenegger fitness community, and in particular, the fitness app that he has, where there's some good conversations. So over the weekend, there was a post that I decided to share, kind of where I was. I went through chemo last week. Hopefully I wasn't too groggy on our podcast, right? But I was pretty laid out. I was pretty tired. And so I was really looking forward to trying to get a workout back in because I just couldn't do it last week. So I shared in a comment on the app that, hey, I got my ass kicked this week, looking to get back out there rucking this weekend. And I had a goal. I was trying to work to the old Ranger School standard of 12 miles in 3 hours. We've talked about that before. And I said, hey, thanks everybody for your support and encouragement. And I got to tell you, Dave, tremendous support, from the village there. Just a lot of, really nice encouragement. People who have lived through cancer, fought through cancer, just, giving you a thumbs up and a, hey, go get it kind of thing. It was really awesome. And I ended up going out on Saturday, and I thought I was just going to try and get the best I could. I don't know, and I actually ended up crushing the workout, blew past my expectations. I think largely because I was so motivated by the support I got. I kind of almost felt like an accountability because I kind of said I was going to do something. And there were people kind of watching in a sense. I was like, crap, I better get it done, right? But also it was great weather, and I felt really good. And I think after a week of being laid out, I really wanted to push myself. But it was great to feel that kind of support. I used that and I shared it in an Instagram post. I felt like by that I put it out there, right? People can, and Canada people have reached out, and I've been able to talk back to them. So it was nice to kind of get it off my chest and share it. And I appreciate the chance to do that here, and sort of just acknowledge where it is. Not looking for anything from anybody. I know people kindly have support and encouragement. I get that. I appreciate it. Don't need people to reach out directly to say that. I know it. But it's nice just to sort of not have to hide it. And so it was nice that, and then sort of in cool things that happened, from that posting in the Arnold app, Arnold reached out last night. He interacts with that community all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, hey, really proud of you, going to use this in our Monday motivation post. So I don't know what that means, as we're recording this, sometime today, Arnold will send out his daily newsletter, and, so we'll see what he does with that. But it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool to be encouraged by folks like that. Those we don't know, those we appreciate, admire. So it's cool. So Dave, thank you for your support. Dave's known about this for a while, and I appreciate your friendship and support, and others, sort of key individuals that knew for different reasons, about the situation. And I'm glad to finally sort of be done with it, and be able to put it out there. Now, there's probably other things we can talk about for other podcasts, some of which might get us into trouble, with certain communities, but that's for another day. But for today, thanks for letting me share about it. Appreciate it. I'll share the link to the post later if anyone wants to check out a little bit more of the details there. And I'll surely share the Arnold Motivational Monday posting, and hopefully it won't be too embarrassing or anything along those lines.
Yeah, we should find out real soon here, Andy, if it does come out on the post, because he usually comes in the mailbox about 6 o'clock in the morning or something like that. So, but Andy, you have our support. I don't think you need me to say that on the podcast here, but I do think you hit on a really good point, and so much of like this negativity and the bad vibes that kind of go on, and people trying to bring other people down. Yeah. It is nice when you can have a community, and I don't think it gets enough. There's a lot of really great things that are happening in this world and in the communities. And there's a lot of people who are very positive. Arnold has been like behind a lot of this. I've even referenced Joey Swoll, who's another guy who's always talking about positivity and trying to get the negativity out of like the gyms and some of this other stuff. But when you have a community of supporters and followers who are only interested in your best interest and your positive movement forward, I mean, you're willing to run through a lot of walls there, and I think that's great encouragement. I was proud to see you get out there on the Ruck March this weekend and get that under 3 hours. That's pretty impressive. I don't know, where I'm at in my life, I don't know if I could get 12 miles in, yet alone with a ruck on there, and yet alone even underneath that with 3 hours. So that's real impressive, Andy, with that. So, and of course, you have the support of the community here. So with that, Andy, want to wrap up this week's podcast. We covered a lot of ground. We'll have 2 more episodes this week, Wednesday and Friday. We are going to be publishing earlier, which will be good, so you can get it on the day of as opposed to the next day. And we will have probably some themes that we go along the way here. Maybe Wednesday we talk politics. Friday we talk a little catch-all grab bag, and maybe pop culture areas. But I'm excited about 3 days a week here, Andy. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too, dude. It's exciting time of the year. Exciting to be starting these out as we wrap up 2023, and we look forward to 2024. Excited we can share these 3 times a week, thrice weekly, we could even say.
That's right.
I think we're looking forward to it. So again, we always appreciate feedback and comments, and Dave, thanks for leading us through these. Looking forward. So happy Monday, happy December, and excited to get into these with you. So it's good.
All right, Andy. Until then, we'll catch up with you next time.